Welcome back to SoundMojo. It's a special edition of the Innersleeve Music Podcast. Cassius Morris here. Joe Pacheco joining me on the line as always. What's happening, Joe?
Yeah, man, this is a big milestone for us. Right?
It's a big milestone, guys. We want to thank everybody for tuning in for episode number 100 of the show. Now, it feels like just yesterday that we were trying to figure out a name for this podcast, Joe, and now it's like time has just zoomed forward and we're at episode number 100.
Yeah, totally, man. I still remember all the discussions and Zoom meetings, me, you, and Frank, who initially started the podcast with us. Frank
the OG
Pavan.
Co-host.
Yeah, and it was like trying to figure out the name, and then like the name Innersleeve it was you, I believe, who suggested Innersleeve, and like, you know, at first it's such a weird phenomenon where at first it sounds weird, but then the more you say it, the more you see it, the more it becomes like normal, right? So now Innersleeve feels normal, right? Yeah, never did I think we'd be at not that I didn't think we'd be at 100, but I'm saying like not this fast. It just feels like what happened, you know, like a blink of an eye, basically.
Well, I think we only started with the goal of having 50 shows. And, you know, after seeing the success of, you know, a lot of the interviews that we've had and a lot of the people reacting to it, whether it was in the industry or from the SoundMojo community and people on the Watch Mojo core channel, you know, we've continued to go. So, you know, just, you know, from my end, I would like to say thank you guys so much before we jump into, you know, some of our favorite moments from this past year. Thank you guys for being so supportive of this show and really helping us build this community. And I know, you know, Joe, I think it's, you know, it's safe to say that we both had a lot of fun growing this.
Yeah. And I loved it's like it, you know, there's a quote I love to use where it says like every day, everything looks sort of the same, but when you look back, everything is different. Right. So it's like,
yes.
So it's kind of like, you know, like we started off, cause like, I say that because like we started off where it was, you would do the interviews with the artists and then like, and that was pretty much it, to be honest.
That was it. That was the whole show.
And then I don't know how many episodes later, I was like, oh no, we should have a bit more of talk about the industry, the news. And then we added on like Frank and I reacting a bit and to the interview and what was said and stuff. And then we started to throw in trivia, news. And look, fast forward to today where we have still our featured guest. And then we have, you know, usually 2-3 news topics and then like reactions from the audience, right? Or user, the community suggestions, which has been really fun, you know, a really eye-opening and ear-opening experience.
That's right, 100%. And I mean, the diversity between all these different genres and everything people suggest has been amazing too. So to really wrap up this past year and these past 100 episodes, Joe and I figured we would pick some of our favorite moments from the Innersleeve catalog in particular of the past year. And I think it's only fitting to kick it off with our man, Steve Vai, who stopped by the show. Arguably, I think, Joe, would it be fair to say Steve Vai was our biggest guest?
Well, I guess so, but like
he's up there, right? I would say like Steve Lukather, Steve Vai, Tobias Forge, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we've had, who else did we have? Lanois, Daniel Lanois, which we'll see. Like in terms of popularity, then I guess so, you know, maybe Steve would be the best one or the one we've gotten the most views from in the sense of like all the extra little content we'll make where, you know, like you will see where he talks about his like incredible guitar, the Hydra, right? It's the bass, 12 string, you know, and harp strings. And
it's almost impossible to categorize that beast. It's insane. You guys are about to see a highlight reel of it. But, you know, Steve Vai, in terms of maybe I'm overstepping saying our biggest, but probably one of my favorite guests that we've had on the show, somebody who has so much wisdom and such a love for his craft. And he's been doing it for so many years and still trying to find ways to evolve his game. And in this clip that we're about to see, he's talking about his Hydra device, which, as Joe mentioned, is a multi-neck, multi-instrumental piece of machinery, which I don't think we can do it justice, Joe. I feel like we just need to show them because it's not going to make sense until they see this beast.
Yeah, and like just the clip we're going to be using is basically he's explaining the going back and forth and like and trying new stuff, and then like, okay, it's one thing to get it right, but then it's one thing to what are you going to do with it, right? So
exactly,
you know, and you know, just a little before we go into it, I remember like when we were sent the album prior, like a good month or two before the interview and before everything was released, kind of stuff, and you know. What I loved about it is that I pressed play and I had no idea that this was using something else. It just sounded like a good Steve Vai piece of music, instrumental, and then, you know, and then I really enjoyed it. And then we found out that the teeth of the Hydra was that instrument, right? So, even more amazing because like he says, it comes across sometimes as a novelty when you do something like this. Oh, it's a one-trick pony. That's all you could really do. But the fact that he said this has got to sound like a piece of music and not like an instrument playing a piece of music. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Or not like some weird solo that you would see like as a sort of a stunt thing to show how well you can play. Like it was actually a cohesive piece. So you're 100% right. Steve Vai, what I think they call him an alien, right? The alien guitar.
I've called him since Alien Love Secrets was one of his albums, but I've always called him an alien, especially if you've had the opportunity to see him live, and I did like many times over the years. And every time my mouth is on the floor because not only in terms of technical performance, it's also the actual physical performance, right? Of him running around and like giving you a show. Like I was 15, front row Whitesnake when he was playing with Whitesnake. And like just watching this guy master this stage and do things that I'd never seen with the guitar live. And, anyways, look, I'm still talking about it like 30 something years later. I'm still like mesmerized by it. So definitely a great performer. It's just the mastery of the instrument that he has that is just so, formidable and impressive.
So after about 3.5 years of going back and forth, I got this instrument and I'm just looking at it and it was awesome and intimidating because I knew I had to create a piece of music on it, and I knew that I wanted to create a piece of music that only had the Hydra on it, and I knew it needed to sound like a piece of music and not a novelty joke, because when you see a picture of this guitar, some people I know that they'll say in their mind, yeah, sure, it's Steve Vai. He can have anything he wants built,
right?
So big deal. What are you going to do with that thing? It's kind of like having a 13-inch prick. It's good it's nice to impress your friends, but what are you really going to do with it?
Exactly. With the sizzle, where's the steak?
Yes, so I know that I have to do something with it. So, and that was really the exciting idea for me, to create a piece of music that uses everything on the Hydra, but sounds like a piece of music, It's kind of like juggling chainsaws,
Right.
So when you listen to that song, all the bass, all the 7-string, all the 12-string, and all the harp strings are performed on the Hydra in one performance. And I did it in sections, I don't really have any special gift for that kind of dexterity. So I had to start really slow and kind of imagine it. And things that seem impossible for you don't seem so impossible once you start doing them. So I started doing it, and then I built the song.
Moving on to another highlight from the past 100 episodes of the show, Tobias Forge from Ghost, of course, the acclaimed frontman of the acclaimed rock group, really who has taken the music game, it almost seems, by storm these past 5 years, Joe.
Yeah, for me, it felt like it came out of nowhere. Like
it really, from like, in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, it just felt like out of nowhere, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, what rock was I living under? Because everybody seems to know these guys, and they're playing like a 9,000, 10,000 seater, like wow, okay, that was
it's insane,
surprising.
And it's almost unprecedented too in today's music game. So it's a nice thing to see. Tobias Forge calling us, I believe, from the airport during travel while he was on tour with Volbeat. This was a cool experience because I just picture him. This was almost like theater of the mind for me, because I picture him like with a hat down, probably in like something, trying not to get too recognized, because like he's not used to going out as himself. He goes out as the characters that he does. And it was so cool picturing him like hidden in the corner. And I'm sure there was probably Ghost fans around who maybe didn't even recognize him, and he's on the phone with us. Just a cool experience all around, I think, for the show.
Sipping a coffee and and like riffing and talking to us, and he was talking about being a control freak, right? Because that's what he's not known for, but like a lot of ink has been spilled, like mentioning the fact that he's a control freak, and he addressed it in this interview.
Or I am what you call a control freak. Just because I'm a control freak does not mean that I'm in control. It just means that I'm a freakish about having control.
It's that desire.
And that desire, because I like to do things my way. But I've also learned that almost nothing that I plan go the way that I plan. It always ends up being a different version of what I had in mind. What I know now, just because I'm somewhat successful doing it is that it usually turns out quite okay. And as long as I have it on my to-do list, I can perfect it later. But I did not know that before. When I had all the time in the world to come up with my schemes and plans, because I had nothing better to do, I was not successful at all. Then it was easier to sort of have a hard, firm, 100%. This is my plan, and this is exactly how things are gonna pan out. And then when it didn't, it felt like a big. Then you got to go back to the drawing table, and it felt like a big defeat. Whereas now it's like, compare it to war. Maybe tasteless in this time and age, but if you want to compare it to, it's like being a general in a war. You have to have an end goal. Yeah, we're taking that fortress over there. I don't really know exactly how. I have 5 different plans of getting there. I just know that we might take that village as well. We might lose that village, but at the end of the day, my hope is for us to controlling that fortress, and I want to control that harbor.
Hopping over to another highlight on the Innersleeve Music Podcast. It's awesome to have this clip included. Nathan James, the celebrity photographer from Los Angeles, California. If you guys have seen any photos, probably in the last decade, of a rock star, a pop artist, a singer, Nathan James may have taken that photo. He has shot for almost every artist you could think of. And in today's highlight, he's talking about shooting for MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, and having a little run-in with Megan Fox while at the house shooting him. This is not your everyday encounter.
No, I really liked what he brought to the interview was just don't waste time, the hustle attitude, the hard work. It's almost like earlier on, almost faking it till you make it, but then obviously he's delivered, because I've seen some of that, his photography, and he does fashion, he does all that stuff, and it's no joke, some really nice work. And definitely was a great guest to have on, and we thought we'd just share this little story.
Yeah, so I shot his album cover, MGK's album cover, Tickets to My Downfall, and that was totally unexpected and cool as fuck. I was literally just in my house, and I got a phone call from his drummer, Rook, and it was a FaceTime. And I answered it, and it hung up real quick. And I was like, wait, that didn't look like Rook. That looked like some other guy. And then it called me back again, and it was Machine Gun Kelly. He was like, yo, what are you doing? This is the first time him and I really had interaction. And I was like, chill. And he's like, I want you to shoot my album cover. I was like, cool. When? He's like, right now. I got to turn it in. So,
there you go. Duty calls.
Yeah. And then he's like, yeah, we did it at his house. And then literally the day after that, we thought we got the cover. He calls me back up, is like, yo, we got to reshoot it again. And he thought the photo looked too editorial and wanted sometimes a little more like rock star. And so I was in the middle of a photo shoot when he had hit me, and I paused that shoot. I go, look, I'm so sorry, but we got to do this later tonight. I got to go shoot this cover. It's going to be big.
Wow. Hey, sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah. I knew the situation. I was like, if this is going to be an iconic thing, I got to go, cancel whatever I got to do and go do this. So I did it, go to his house. We literally only had 1 hour, because I think it's him and Megan's 6-month anniversary, and there's some dinner plans. Bro, I got 1 hour. We got to do this shit. And we didn't know what we're doing. So we ended up, Madyson was there too. And Madyson and I were helping coordinate all this shit. And Mod's like, yo, what if we just shot this shit in the pool? So we're like, okay, cool. And his pool just happened to be empty. And it was a really overcast, there's ash in the sky because there were these fires happening. So the sky and everything was just really strange, and the lighting was real perfect. And we didn't have a lot of time, and we took a bunch of photos, and I was placed in different spots and everything throughout the pool area. And then he's in this one spot, and I'm like, yo, let me just take this photo of you real quick just to see if you like this, so don't waste time if you want a different angle and everything. And I took this one image, and I walked up to show it to him. I turned the camera over to show him. He's like, boom, that's the one, we're done. And that ended up being the cover. So yeah, that is the cover.
Now, this episode was a really fun one. If you're familiar with the world of YouTube, chances are you know the name Anthony Vincent. And this is a guest who I think it was a little while in the making on the show. I remember early on, especially with Frank, we would be brainstorming, and the name Anthony Vincent would seem to come up pretty frequently.
Yeah, and I remember like what finally like made us push the trigger was I was here one night and I ended up seeing him showed up on my feed, him doing a top 10 most difficult songs to sing, you know, explaining that like it's not that hard to sing or this or that, whatever, you know, and like apparently he had gone to that video a few years before and written challenge accepted, and then a few years later put out that top 10
on
Watch
Mojo.
Yeah, Watch Mojo's top 10 most difficult songs to sing or something like that. So that's why we reached out to him. It took a while. Finally, we got him on, and I was so happy to have like a great conversation with this guy, because not only is he an impressive singer, because like to do all the genres and how he does it, and even just the behind the scenes of how to get, let's say, 10 versions of whatever, you know, like Katy Perry's in metal, in death metal, in rock, and pop, and funk.
It takes a lot of versatility.
So much work behind the scenes to make it just flow and smooth. And he even went into explaining like some Star Wars thing he had done, and like with a prop and string in the room. Anyways, and having to restart from the beginning because he likes to do it in one pass kind of thing. It's like, wow. So it's definitely an artist, you know, like people like to say that maybe he's just covering stuff, but definitely like it's definitely a creator and someone who's like super passionate about what he does and has like a rabid audience that loves it.
The root idea as to why we wanted to reach out to you in the first place and just kind of pick your brain was because we are a sister channel of Watch Mojo, and you relatively recently released a video challenging a list on Watch Mojo. I wanted to, on which, by the way, for those watching and listening, it's the most difficult songs to sing list from Watch Mojo. What made you want to take that on? Was it like, this is so goddamn bad that I need to do something about it, or were you genuinely curious, or like what made you go on this journey?
I just, you know, as somebody who puts up videos on YouTube, I'm always keeping my eyes peeled for an opportunity to get some clicks.
Fair enough.
I'm always looking for stuff. I mean, look, a couple of years ago, I put out the top 10 hardest vocal lines to sing, and that was just that got a lot of attention. It was just me, you know. I wasn't really even going based on an official list. I was more just taking people's challenges, what they thought the top 10 hardest vocal lines were, and I did it that way. So I figured it would be a good way to kind of revisit that format to find a list that is that's also already had a lot of attention, and see what it's all about. And I kind of expected a lot of the songs that were on that list, a lot of the artists. I forget which one it was. Was it songs or artists?
Songs.
It was songs.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I expected a lot of them to be there. But
Okay.
I know a lot of the, I think you referred to it as whistle notes or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Those ones threw you off, eh?
yeah, because like, you know, it's unrealistic for one, like for me, you know,
Right.
like I got a certain vocal type. Everyone has different vocal types. It's unrealistic for one person to be able to do every single singing style on the planet. It's, you know, there are very few people who can even come close. I know there's that one guy, Dimash. He has a pretty stellar range. You know, but I mean, they're few and far between, like really few and far between, if they even exist. You're a freak of nature if you could do that. If you can do like, if you can sing like the rich tone of Elvis's lowest note and also be able to riff in a whistle register like Mariah Carey, I mean, you're like an alien, like straight up.
I agree.
Jumping over to another highlight, Danielle Lanois, of course, the superstar producer for, I mean, U2, Peter Gabriel. I mean, look, I'm not even going to try to list his credits, Joe, because we'll be here all night.
Yeah, seriously. But we chose the clip because, you know, we're gamers and we like games, and the creation of like how he created the soundtrack to Red Dead Redemption 2, which is like a massive game. And sadly, like there's just not enough hours in the day. It's like one of those games I've always wanted to play. I've never gotten to play it, but I've listened to the soundtrack.
It's a long
many
game,
times.
though, isn't it?
Well, it's an open world and it could take as long as you want, right? Like it's just endless. But no, it was Daniel Lanois. Like, I mean, I'm like a huge fan. I've always been for a long time, and I'm still jealous that he called you little brother and that I wasn't on the interview.
I know, man. It would have been nice if you were in the interviews back then, but hopefully some of the love got transferred to you from Danielle.
Oh, yeah. Well, we definitely love to have him on again for sure, because I mean, like we but scratched the surface of everything he does or has done, you know, or could do.
And you've mentioned that Red Dead Redemption 2, you weren't really a video game player before this. What was that like creating music for that game world?
I like that the game requested that we work with stems. Stems, for those who don't know, is really just a way of splitting up the multi-track into different divisions. So you'd have, let's say, the drums and percussion on one stem, and bass and rhythm piano on another, and so on and so on, the vocals on a separate stem. And then you depending on where the gamer directs the character, a certain stem may come up in the saloon that then doesn't come up in the desert. So it's a way of splitting the song into little different divisions. And I really enjoyed the process of that, because it meant that we could really isolate certain components and provide different feelings for different scenes.
Wow, that must be so very liberating as a creator, especially someone who already sees sort of visuals in their head from the music.
Well, it was a scoring invitation. When you think about it, not a lot different than somebody presenting you with a scene for a film to score. There's a lot that's already been dictated, but this was even more complex than that, because the character might find him or herself in a different setting directed by the player of the game. So we needed to be much more flexible than we had been. If it's 5 scenes, then you got to be especially flexible.
You got to be on it. No, that makes a lot of sense.
For example, I worked with D'Angelo in New York. The song we were going after didn't quite work out, and I said, D, well, give me a day in the studio and I'll come up with another track, and I did. So rather than be frustrated by the thing that didn't work out, we went after a secondary thing that proved to be very good.
So just keep trying, essentially, and it'll work.
Well, we keep trying. I mean, there's nothing like a magic moment or a bit of success on a first day to provide all that encouragement, but not every day is a perfect day. But usually the first day is a perfect day for me, luckily.
That's a good streak to have. Now, exciting as these guests have been, the main mission statement of the Innersleeve Music Podcast has always been to shine a light on the indie artist community. And that is, of course, the mission statement of SoundMojo itself. So we want to show some love to some of the artists who have come on the show, who have been part of the SoundMojo video catalog, who have released exclusive releases in partnership with SoundMojo. And the first person we're going to jump into, the first act, is going to be Title Holder, which, Joe, I think don't you guys go back quite a ways?
No, actually, it's funny that
this is newer.
I'm glad. No, I'm glad, because it solidifies the fact that it does feel that way, because I literally got a submission from Title Holder and we got onto a call the day after and just hit it off super well. He was super appreciative of what we can provide, and then when I got him on the show, he gave us so many cool indie tips and how to function as an indie artist and the industry. I just love his work ethic, his hustle. And I've seen his numbers really go up, and he's super appreciative. I love getting emails from artists that man, everywhere I go, someone says, I saw you on a Watch Mojo video. I saw you on a Watch Mojo video, So it's cool, So we'll go straight into the clip with Matt explaining his take on AI music.
Another big thing taking music by storm is AI and the sort of the artificial intelligence taking over the algorithms to see apparently what music is most like radio hits so they can help find the next big artists. Also, AI production in music. I'm just wondering how you feel about that. I mean, do you think it will ruin music if it's mostly artificially produced, or do you think it needs that human touch to it to be good?
I mean, a human touch is always going to be great, but a lot of people, I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to do the Pepsi challenge with a room of people and tell them all to close their eyes and play 2 songs for them and ask them which one they think was the person and which one they think was the robot, I guarantee you nobody, half the room would get it right because they guessed.
That's a good point.
I mean, and that's also to say, when I'm working with a producer, we're listening to a half a dozen songs that are my favorite, and we're looking at that schematic of, intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, and we're kind of basing how I write songs off of, what's already been done before. I mean, I'm not like reinventing the wheel with anything I'm doing songwriting wise. So if a computer's doing it, I mean, it's like a calculator. They're probably doing it faster and better than I am anyways. But
Interesting.
I think the human touch is always going to give you a leg up, where you have a real person, you have a real story, you have a real heart, you've got engagement that you can put out there in the world and grab an audience. If I'm just Matt's computer that just put out a hit record, you're going to have to work a lot harder for people to care about whatever, a computer is doing.
That's a good point.
That's the idea, it's cool. If I could put all my songs into a database and have it just keep launching new versions of those songs, I might hear something and go, damn, that's way better than what I could do.
Yeah. Take off on that.
That's what I'm afraid of, because I mean, like 20 years ago, plugins and all that stuff, people were like, it's never going to get close to the hardware. And today,
yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
I bought a $250 Universal Audio plugin rather than the $2,000 unit, because
there you go.
I can fit it right here.
That's the way to do it.
That, but you can use, depending on your processing power, you can have 10 of them. You can't have 10 of the hardware unit. It would cost you like whatever, right?
One of the artists that really stood out to me this past year goes by the name of Madyson Lash. And if you guys are subscribed, you may have seen Madyson on the SoundMojo page before. But the reason she stood out to me specifically, Joe, was because she seems to have such a grasp of the business that she's in, not only on the music side, but guys, it's called the music business for a reason. And I'm not trying to, say something that's that obvious, but a lot of people just focus on the talent and the songwriting, which is hugely important. Don't get me wrong, but the business aspect is something that a lot of artists don't delve into. And Madyson Lash's understanding of it, I think, could be an example for indie artists everywhere.
Yeah, and like, similar story to title holder. I got the submission, we got on a call, and boop, it was so easy, so fun, like it wasn't like no negotiating back and forth and whatever. And like you said, the business thing, she's got it down, man. Like as you see in the interview, she has everything laid out, planned out, ready to go. And as she mentions in this clip, we talk about owning your own masters, which at this point she owns her own masters. And, would she be open to having a record label, like a deal or that type of stuff? So without further ado,
I feel like owning your own masters is like allowing yourself to have that full power over your music career. Like I said, people in the music industry feel like that they can intimidate you and they can kind of take control over your own career. And I feel like, owning your own masters is you kind of taking the wheel and taking yourself in the direction that you want to go as far as your music goes.
Would you ever be interested? Sorry, Cassius. Would you ever be interested in, let's say, like a major label approaches you with a record deal, or are you like no labels at all or something?
So I'm open to it. I'm not gonna say like, oh, this is exactly what I want. You know what I mean? I'm very open to it. If I get an offer of some sort, and they come up to me, and then I think that I would be better off going independent, then I would want to go independent. But if they approach me with a really good deal, things like that, I would take it. So I'm keeping my options open, and I'm making sure that I still have as much control over my music career as I want.
Now, when it comes to laughs on the show, very few people can top the guys from MDT, the motorcycle display team. These guys are an absolute riot, and every single time they come on, Joe, I feel like I'm laughing more than I'm asking questions.
Still laughing now, man. Like just thinking about them, instant smile. But they have the cred of music writing and songwriting and performance to back it up too. They're not just funny dudes, right? They're just like, they're also really good, and they struck a really nice, I get really good reactions from the audience and comments on the videos, like very good reaction with the Watch Mojo and SoundMojo audience. And they just released Wereman, and like we had been talking over the last 2 years since the pandemic locked them out of being able to record it and stuff. And then they mentioned, we'll be recording with, I forgot the producer's name at the moment, but like we'll be recording on a boat. And I'm like, what? Recording
hold on, let me clean up my headphones and see if I heard that right.
Did you not somehow forget to tell me that you're friends with Pink Floyd's David Gilmour, who owns a recording studio on the boat? No, it's not his. It's another studio. Anyways, I won't take it too long, but like it's really trippy to just a different experience of a recording studio on a boat, you know?
I went down to meet him one day at his studio. His studio was in a boat on the Thames, or the Thames, however, whatever the correct pronunciation, on a river in London, a massive river in London. It's in a boat. And I'm not going to lie, getting the drum kit in and out down the stairs was a pain in the
my
arse.
gosh.
Yeah.
Right, first day in the studio. Feels great to be back, man. And this is what we're going to be recording on, Lightship 95 Soup Studio. It's really cool. Going to be setting up and we'll be playing some tunes. I think we're going to do Mexicans first in this very Mexican location.
Really cool studio, really cool. He has subsequently moved into it. There's living quarters upstairs. So yeah, we went in, we had a chat. Then he started coming into rehearsals with us, and he was really involved from day one, and took loads of notes and was really produced, instead of like, because we kind of had the experience of going to the studio, let's play and record, done, okay, next song. Whereas this was, we went in like, and bear in mind, we had the songs ready to go pre-pandemic, so it was during the first kind of ease of lockdown that we did the first half. So we knew the songs inside out, and we were very in the habit of playing them in a certain way. So we'd start playing, and next thing you go, okay, try it this way. Okay, try this way. Like, we were kind of, hold on, this is not the fucking way I played it.
You're like, I kind of wrote this.
You know what I mean? We wrote it. Yeah, I know what I'm doing here. You know what I mean? But like, then by the second or third day, we figured it out. I was like, okay. But he really pushed us, which was brilliant, and got us out of our comfort zones. And, we're incredibly proud of what he made us do.
Control room, live room, out room.
Now, for any of our indie artists out there who are into the metalcore screamo scene, this is definitely a clip that you guys are going to want to pay attention to. Our guy Justin from Fayne, who is the vocalist of the group, came on and gave us a step-by-step tutorial on how he achieves his screaming sound, which I think we had to ask because, it was in the back of Frank's mind. It was in the back of my mind. And I'm glad that we got this question out, because I've always wondered, how does this not tear up the throat? But I guess there is a technique.
Yeah, there's definitely a technique, and there's even courses out there. I remember some of the people, some of the artists I used to record, they used to always tell me there's like a female vocal coach that was, you could buy the DVDs and she'll show you how to warm up and how to like really push safely, because like, don't forget, you're screaming, right? And you have to last half hour, 45 minutes or more, and some of these guys, like, you have to. There's definitely got to be a technique and a safe way to do it so you don't hurt yourself, because you got to do it every night, and like you got to be in shape. And like it's easy to, well, it's not easy. It's a drummer, it's physical, but you can rest and sleep and you'll be fine. Guitar player, same thing. But a vocalist, it's your entire body. So if you're sick and not feeling it one day, it totally affects the whole thing. Anyways, we'll let Justin explain his technique and how he gets it done.
Is there a proper way to do vocals like that without damaging your voice? And how did you exactly learn to do that?
Absolutely. There's absolutely a proper way to do that. And a lot of people focus a lot in the beginning on trying to sound a certain way and not making a sound without hurting yourself, but rather just sounding a certain way because they're trying to mimic, either their favorite vocalists, their favorite singers. And this is the wrong way to go about it, because everybody sounds different. Everybody has their own voice. And what you have to be able to do is to find your own voice without destroying your vocal cords and, popping a vein or, giving yourself a backiotomy because you're forcing and coughing up blood and stuff like that. So everybody has their own voice at first, and once you can learn how to push that sound out without hurting yourself, then you can kind of start to tailor the sound as your voice has been worked out, and as you get used to using your vocal cords and your vocal folds. It's actually more your vocal folds, not your vocal cords. Your vocal folds are what helps push the air, and your vocal cords are kind of like the tone benders, like in your throat. But all that power comes from your diaphragm. It comes from the muscles here underneath your rib cage, which is actually, I learned this back in high school because I was a theater kid. So I was acting on stage in plays and stuff like that.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really?
And I was a professional theater student in college for a semester.
I was just going to ask if you took an anatomy class or something. I was just going to ask that because you're quite well versed. But have you ever before you knew all this damaged your vocal cords or hurt yourself?
Yeah, I have.
Many times? One time it happened and you said never again, or?
As an adult, it's happened unintentionally, by going to shows and having a couple of drinks and just screaming along to your favorite band's music irresponsibly. And the next day you wake up and you're like, why don't I have a voice?
Yeah.
But as a kid, when I first started singing, I started singing at about 7 years old, 6, 7 or 8 years old. I was singing in talent shows and I was covering songs, dancing on the mantle and on the fireplace in my parents' house, pretending it was a stage and stuff like that.
Was it in Portuguese?
Yeah.
Was the music in Portuguese?
No, were you singing in Portuguese?
Fuck no, man.
Never know.
Well, I'm going to start singing fado at the top of my lungs at 9 years old. I got enough of that with my grandma and my parents singing that at the top of their lungs. So I was like, I got to do my own thing. But there's definitely a way to not hurt yourself. You got to get that power from your voice, from the muscles that are in your diaphragm. And it's a projection technique that actors use on stage when they're performing in plays, because unless you're doing a musical where everyone's hooked up with lavalier mics, or you're in a small auditorium, you actually have to get that audience to hear your voice without your voice being hooked up to a microphone. And you have to still be able to act out your part and do your scenes without looking like you're screaming at somebody, because not every conversation, not every conversation in a play or scene in a play is a guy screaming at the top of their lungs. Sometimes it's calmer. So, I can talk to you guys nice and quietly like this, or I could talk to you guys nice and quietly like this, but I am not forcing my voice anymore. Either way, what I'm doing is I'm kind of pushing that air up from my diaphragm, and I'm not straining my throat. It's a very similar feeling to when you take a dump, which is actually the forcing technique that they call in vocal training. It's called dump, which is where you gather that power from the muscles in your diaphragm in order to force that air out. And there's really funny names in the singing world.
I really hope you're clenching your butt cheeks when that's happening, because
sometimes when you're getting used to it, you kind of have to, and you subconsciously do it too, because you're like, oh, I'm about to take a shit, but now you're like, it's like.
Hopping over to another artist, Kazi 4 Letters. What can we really say about this dude, man? Whenever this guy jumps on the show or whenever I listen to his content, a smile just comes across my face, man. He's a really nice person. He's a genuine person, which is hard to find in this business. And I think something that we need more of.
Yeah, he does so many different aspects of the business as well. He's a promoter, a producer, a songwriter. And what I love about his stuff is there's always a good message. It's not just swearing, to swear or cussing or acting tough. It's the message behind it, So, definitely we had a blast talking to him, and, hopefully we'll get him on the show again.
Yeah, I would say hip hop is just kind of my core identity, because I came up making my name battling, freestyling. I was in those, and I see this similarity in other artists like Kid Rock, T-Pain, other artists that came up like rapping, like hardcore rapping, like, in the clubs rapping, doing their thing, and then kind of transitioned and evolved into like another version of themselves that allowed them to tap into all their musical interests. And so like, I think hip hop is at the core of who I am. And as a writer, when I think of the beat, it's going to be a touch of jazz or a touch of pop or rock, but the beat, the foundation is going to be that hip hop, like that knock, that 808, that bass that goes along with it, that kind of makes you want to move and nod your head, that you can bond to. I think that's always going to be there. But I think as a producer, because I produced 7 of the records on the album,
Oh, nice.
So that's an element that allows me to showcase that side of me, right? That did my best was me doing my New Edition, Bobby Brown kind of pop, CNC Music Factory, just all this stuff, like I said, that touched me. I get to now program that and then rap over it, but it feels like 80s, 90s R&B, and I think that's what I think people find their sound or their pocket. And I think that, that's a big pocket for me, is taking my influences and making them new, right? That Crossroads is a modern day Muddy Waters record, Robert Johnson record. Like if they were here now, that's what it would hopefully sound like, And
I like that. If they had the current technology and the awareness also of what is happening now.
That Robert Johnson would sing his part and then he would spit a verse that was so cold and mean, that would make it, like today's. And so I think that hopefully that part of it too is for the kids that's not doing their research and they digging in, that they'll see that and go possibly dig a little element further. That's what, Public Enemy and Chuck D and KRS-One made me do when I would see them talk about things. I would go dig another element I got to find out about this, and
absolutely.
I hope that's what that does.
We hope you enjoyed these highlights from the last 100 episodes of the Innersleeve Music Podcast. And we just wanted to say again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you guys so much for your continued support. We definitely hope that you guys understand, all the SoundMojo artists out there, that we can't put everybody in this episode. If we could, we definitely would. But we just wanted to thank everyone who also submitted their music, everyone who submitted their videos. Without you guys, this really wouldn't be possible. And we appreciate each and every one of you.
Yeah, same thing. If I could just add my 2 cents with SoundMojo, we had so many more on the show. We can't have them all, but same thing with the interviews, right? We had Bob Gruen, we had Dee Snider over the, we've had so many really cool, Miles Kennedy, Marty Friedman came on twice, all that stuff, right? But we're trying to keep it, time being what it is, keep it nice, short and sweet, as we say. But definitely want to thank all the SoundMojo artists for supporting SoundMojo, and you as well, the listeners, for listening to this, commenting, suggesting all the user suggestions. I keep saying user like it's a machine. The audience suggestions and stuff. And we'll hope to be making another 200th episode in 2 years.
That's right, guys. Works out. Let's hope so. Fingers are crossed. Thank you guys so much for tuning in once again, and we'll catch you guys next week.